Well, for more, I'm joined by the chairman of the Congressional Armed Services, Congressman Adam Smith of the state of Washington. Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. What would you do if the president declares tomorrow from the border that he's going to take $4 or $5 billion from the Defense Department and spend it on the wall?
Two things. One, we would sue. A lot of different people would be involved in that, because if you look at the law that he's referencing, it's a 1976 law. I don't think this falls under the heading of a national emergency as defined in that law. I think it would clearly be an illegal act, and we'd sue. Second, on the Armed Services Committee, we would advance legislation to block him from doing it. Now, obviously, the problem with that is whatever we passed would have to get through the Senate and be signed by the president. So it would really probably play out in the courts.
He says we face a threat of drugs coming across the border. That's the big one that grabs most people, drugs. What can we do about it? Is this like the swine flu thing that the president declared a national emergency over? Can he claim that?
Well, I mean, he can claim that, but look, border security is important. No, Democrats are all acknowledging that. A wall is the exact wrong way to go about doing it, as most border people will tell you. And we've invested massive amounts of money in border security, so much so that the number of unauthorized entries into the country are at historic lows. We have fewer undocumented people in the country. We've invested in Border Patrol agents. We've built a wall where it makes sense. The president's fixated on the wall instead of focusing on what would really work for border security.
There's a lot of people who would like to see this blockade, basically, of U.S. government activity. And, like,
yes,
there's all kinds of ideas. A lot of people, I argued last night, most people coming to this country are not coming here to do evil. They're coming here to do well. They're trying to get a job. And they hear there might be a job in Chicago or Philly or somewhere, and they're going for it. That's why they come to the country. They get the word from a cousin. There's a job open at this restaurant. There's a job open at this gas station. You got to get up here. Should we allow guest workers? Is that a compromise?
Absolutely. That's the larger problem, is the legal immigration system in this country is broken. And under President Trump's leadership, he's made it more difficult. He's trying to block immigrants in every conceivable way. Yeah, we need comprehensive immigration reform to make the legal immigration
You would
system
include
work
possible
better.
guest worker program?
Absolutely.
Let me ask you about this thing. You say that you would sue if the president of the United States took $4 or $5 billion from defense and spent it on the wall. There's nothing else you can do legislatively?
Well, like I said, we can do it legislatively, but I can also count. And the Republicans control the Senate, and the president has to sign anything that we do legislatively.
That's true. Well, let's take a look at something I think is a little bit sad and ridiculous. Nearly 800,000 government employees don't know when they're going to see their next paycheck, which is supposed to come this Friday but won't, including more than 8,000 members of the Coast Guard civilian workforce. According to the Washington Post tonight, the Coast Guard published a list of suggestions to help them make it through the financial strain of the shutdown. The recommendations include having a garage sale, getting a babysitting job, a dog walking job, or becoming a personal shopper. What do you make of that? This is advice to actual federal employees.
This is something, 800,000 people are suffering. The people that they're supposed to be serving are suffering, and they're suffering over a legislative policy dispute. And what the president doesn't, I've had things that have been important to me that I've worked on for a decade to try to get passed. That's all this is a legislative policy dispute. You should not shut the government down over it. You should have a vote. If you don't have the votes, you don't have the votes. Then take your case to the American people, win the next election, and go forward. But to shut down the government every time you have a disagreement over where we're spending money, that's a recipe for suffering and chaos. And these people are suffering, and the president just blows right past that. And I think your illustration shows how ridiculous.
It's a sad illustration and a ridiculous one. Thank you, U.S. Congressman Adam Smith, chairman of the Armed Services Committee of the House of